Wait, what are we talking about?
Oh, show your work.
Okay. Your skin feels smooth.
Does it?
Really
It's hairy. Hello and welcome to Creative Living. I'm Max.
And I'm Amy.
And we're feeling really flat today.
Don't have high expectations of this one.
It's a gentle video.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about, Amy just lent me this book called Show Your Work by Kleon. And we thought we'd talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Sharing your work and how that's important as an artist to be comfortable and okay about sharing your creative journey before you even reach any form of success or whatever you see success as.
Yeah, definitely. Especially because now with like an online platform where we can share our work and we don't have to, in inverted commas, be successful to show our work. And for the first time ever, really, people can see an artist's process, which I think we've spoken about before. Like, people can now get to know the artist rather than just the art.
Yeah.
And that's really appealing to people, and so it's important.
Yeah, it is really important. And it's also important for you because you're telling yourself that this is worth people seeing. So even if it's not at the stage that you feel like is perfect and you're happy with it, it's important to share little bits and pieces of your journey because you're actually training your mind to say, it's okay, like, you know, it's worth showing and people are interested because I find this interesting and I really enjoy what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's even more than just putting yourself out there as an artist. It's also telling yourself that your work is worth...
valuable, yeah.
Yeah, is worth something.
Totally.
Yeah.
I have found showing my work online to be, and showing my process online to be really beneficial for me as an artist, as a writer, and it's built self-respect and it's allowed me to take myself seriously, which, you know, it's hard to do if you're not putting your work out there.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
Like, because I only just read this book. Fantastic book. Highly recommend it. It's really practical. Amy, like, you've been really great about sharing your journey for quite a while now. I'm only sort of in the beginning stages of that and finding ways to put that together, even just bits of stuff that I'm filming and shooting now. I'm going, oh, actually, no, like, I could be sharing that.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
Yeah. So,
like, the small things that you're shooting, like, even just, like, unedited bits of film, you should share that.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm working on and putting together at the moment is an easy way for me to share it as well, because it's quite a lot. Yeah,
it can't be a big rigmarole, the sharing, otherwise you won't.
Yeah.
And you can't put too much thought into it. I don't think that's what it's about.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like, when you publish your work, that has to be a lot of, like, publish a book, like, a lot of thoughts go behind that. But I think what we're more talking about is sharing the process. And that kind of thing needs to be, like, easy to do. You don't need to overthink it. You just need to know that it has worth and put it out there.
Yeah, it's like the behind the scenes.
Yeah, BTS.
BTS. But it is really important. And it's hard. Like I just said before, you actually need to think about it and get into the habit. And I'm really struggling to get into that habit and thinking ahead and going, well, if I'm going to be sharing off my phone, then I need to be putting a little bit on my phone that I can share throughout the week when I'm not at home and can just easily access something.
Totally.
Thinking ahead and going, this is worth sharing and I need to plan this each week.
Yeah. I find that, like, I go in and out of stages where it's very easy for me to share, and then I'll go into, like, it's much harder. Like, I feel much more blocked. And I feel like I'm ripping posts out of my heart and putting them in there, or, like, just the effort behind it is huge. I'm not really sure what that is.
Yeah.
Certainly over the last year or two, I found it much harder to share. I think that's because it was ever since, and, like, this is silly, but, like, the Instagram algorithm changed and it really fucked me over. Like, I was growing and I was getting so much interaction from people. When it changed, like, I mean, my interaction, like, halved itself.
Wow.
And I've been losing followers ever since.
What was the change in algorithm? Do you know?
What did they do? Oh, when they stopped showing it time, when they changed it so that you weren't just seeing what was most recently posted, but they changed it so that the algorithm picked the ones to show.
Yeah, so you're not in control.
Yeah. It sucked for me. I found that really hard. It put me into a big funk for a while. And so I think when we share our work, we are vulnerable to the platforms we use. And you can overthink it, and you do have to be in a healthy space, understanding that like a big business is essentially in charge of who sees your work and who doesn't. And that does suck.
But it's really great though, because to know that means having a website in your own space, like we were saying just
it's so important.
Is to have that website and have that space that you control. So it doesn't matter what platforms come and go, because there'll be a new one in the next year or two. There'll be some up and coming something or other, like there always is. But if you can have that platform that you control,
that is important. And like a connection with your fans or the people that appreciate your art away from Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. It is useful.
And I'm trying to think about how to do that. I had it just originally for my producing work, but now I'm thinking I might actually change it.
And have it for everything.
Everything. Kind of makes more sense at the moment.
Do you want to talk about where showing your work can go wrong and where it's not useful, perhaps?
Well, you obviously need to pick and choose what you show. Especially, I mean, it's not like, you know, as a writer, you're not going to reveal your greatest plot twist. Like, just working on my plot twist. Like, you obviously need to pick the bits that you show and the bits that are not too vulnerable. Like, you don't want to show something that is really close to your heart that you're working on and it's still in its real precious embryo stages.
Definitely.
I
think that something that I've been thinking about a lot is I think Glennon Doyle talks about it, how you should never reveal when you're in the fire, which I don't necessarily agree with, but you should talk about like it retrospectively when you've got something to give to people, like when you've learned from the fire, and how often like posting when you're in pain or when like something bad has happened is often makes you too vulnerable. I literally don't know if this is true. Too vulnerable and you're not giving yourself the space to learn yet and to only share once you've learned. And like I don't always do that. Sometimes I share in the fire very raw moments of pain or vulnerability, and those posts are really hard to make, but sometimes I do that. But I think there is a balance, and you've got to feel comfortable if you choose to post within like highly emotional moments to know that you're safe and to know that you're going to feel okay about putting that out there.
And you've got to be the one to decide.
It's also good, I think, if you choose to post very highly emotional content, to then follow it up with your learning and to follow it up with how you've processed it.
But I guess you always have to be aware that when you put something out there, you're opening yourself up to anyone and anyone's opinion. And
it does suck.
You have to just be prepared.
You do.
People to disagree as well. Like maybe that's also why if you're in that moment, in that fire, whatever that is, like just think about it, because if you are seeing something a certain way and you post in that vulnerable state and someone comes back and literally highlights that deep insecurity that you have.
That's happened
at that
to me.
Moment.
It's hard. Especially when like you can get an abundance of support, which is so beautiful and valuable, but that one person who just hits you right to the core is like, you know, that's very hard to recover from, and that's happened to me several times. Really hurts.
And you remember it.
Of course. I literally have like lists of things right now I'm thinking about of just people who I shared vulnerably and they just decided to poke where it hurts. It's hard. It's really hard. But obviously, sharing vulnerability can be extremely beneficial to your community, your artist's community, and it can be very cathartic for you, and it can also be very good for your brand.
Well, that's a huge part about what you show in your brand. like thinking about every little bit that you show, you need to also realize that you're telling everyone about yourself. You're sharing a little bit about yourself, so picking and choosing what you show, making sure it's in the right context, is also really important.
Definitely. You know, like, this is a wild example, but things like, I run a writing Instagram, so if I was to, you know, break up with my boyfriend, that's not the space. Just like making sure that it's not on brand, you know?
Yeah.
That's just obvious, like, deep pain that you didn't know what to do with, and you put it out there.
Yeah.
In the wrong space for you.
Yeah.
That's not going to help your brand. It's not going to help you. It's almost like a cry for help, and that's different from sharing vulnerably.
Yeah, exactly.
Just, yeah. Picking the place and the time.
Yeah. What's serving you, what's serving your work. And it's hard sometimes. Like, I know some of the stuff I post, I'm like, that's completely irrelevant to what I'm doing. But you need to sort of test the waters every now and then. And
totally, and if it's relevant to who you are and your brand, then...
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say something. It came and went.
Just a little wisp.
What were we talking about before?
Like, what's relevant?
I'll come back to that.
Yeah, we're feeling very... if you haven't picked up on that already. But we're having a rough week.
We're having a day. Yeah, it's not really just been a day, has it?
It's been a rough week. It's also important to acknowledge that, like, just going slow.
We're going real slow.
Really slow. Like, I'm trying to do one video for YouTube, and it's taking me forever at the moment to finish. That's okay.
One tiny step a day.
Yeah. And that is true. Like, I am doing something each day. So it's not that I haven't done anything. What?
I remember what I was going to say.
What?
I'm sorry for interrupting.
Go.
Oh my god, did it go? Oh no. I was going to say, just as much as we talk about sharing vulnerably, don't, like, curate your... If that isn't your thing, that's totally fine. You don't have to share vulnerably, but curating perfect Instagram's perfect, you know, facades of your artistic life as well. I'm not sure. I mean, I guess you could do that, but Austin talks a lot about sharing the process in your work, and your process will inevitably come up with mistakes, and it will come up with, you know, if you're a visual artist, like shitty pictures or, you know, photography that gets gone wrong, like, and sharing that insight into behind when you tried something and then it didn't work.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point.
Which is fascinating for people.
People have great bullshit radars as well with stuff like that.
Yeah.
You will follow someone and you kind of know if they're being real or not.
Yeah, just like being true to your journey and sharing it in that way. I think that's what Austin talks about a lot.
I think that also will protect you in the long run from being burnt out or having too high of an expectation of yourself, especially when you do reach some kind of success, whatever that is for you, to know that through this whole journey you've been serving yourself and being honest with your work and making mistakes and owning those mistakes will make you feel better in the future when you have more people watching you, more eyes on you, that you can still feel like, well, that didn't quite work. This is why. What do you guys think?
At the end of the day, you're telling yourself, you're creating a narrative around yourself, around your story in the way that you present to people online. And so if that narrative doesn't sit right with you, or if it's skipping out the shitty bits, like, that can affect you as a person. Because it's the story you're telling about yourself.
Yeah.
So it does, you're right, like, it needs to reflect you and what you're going through. I agree.
Yeah.
Also, we really briefly went over it last week. Is it okay that I keep talking?
Oh, go for it.
Just about how when we show our work in not online, but like when we meet people, and owning our art when we come into social spaces. We spoke about last week how talking about, like, owning your practice. So when people ask what you do, telling them that you're a producer, you're a photographer, you're a writer, and then owning your story and showing your work in that way, talking about what you do with people, putting your work out there verbally as much as you can so that the world understands the universe is getting signs from you. that that's what you're doing and that's what you intend to keep doing. Because you never know where that might take you, and also like just owning your narrative every single time you meet somebody is so powerful.
Oh yeah, but putting yourself out there really does say something to the universe. It really,
oh yeah,
you really do find your people when you do that.
Yep, but it is probably, I think it's way harder than showing your work online. Obviously, it's much more vulnerable when you're face to face with somebody.
Oh yeah, because you read everything.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got to practice that. I even like to practice it like by myself. Like, what if people say, "Oh, what do you do?" And then I say, "Oh, I'm a writer," and then they say, "Oh, are you published?" And then how do I respond? Or if they ask me, "What do you write?" How do I respond? And like almost picking up all the questions that anyone could possibly ever ask me and just preparing for what you're going to say, how you're going to own your story, how you're going to own your work and share your work. I think it's very handy.
Yeah, really handy. Having an elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're not just showing your work online, but also offline through who you are as a person.
Yeah.
Selling yourself.
Good.
Have we gone for enough time?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
See you.
Goodbye.